Hi there, this is Andreas with XpressPads finger drumming, and today I'd like to speak about basics of finger drumming. So when you want to become a finger drummer, you need a piece of hardware, that's your pad controller or groove production studio, and you need a piece of software, which would be a virtual drum kit or virtual drum module or something like that. And today's video is really focused completely on the hardware. I won't play anything, I do this in other videos. I will just talk about pad controllers, the ones that I have, the groove production studios that I have, and my experience with it, and of course what I think is important about pad controllers when you want to use them for finger drumming, especially with the XpressPads finger drumming technique. So, first of all, the biggest thing about pad controllers are the pads. So the pads really need to be superb, meaning for me that they need to be very sensitive, because in finger drumming you want to do something different from static loops that you can find everywhere. You want to play drum grooves that sound realistic. For that purpose you need to have a virtual drum kit that sounds realistic, and you need an input device like a pad controller or groove production studio which has a great pad section, which is very responsive to your hits and which is tweakable, so to your liking. So if you have stronger fingers, stronger hands, you maybe need less sensitivity. If you have hands not that strong, you might need a higher sensitivity on your pads. And most pad controllers offer this option to change the pad sensitivity, but some do not. The second thing that is really important about pad controllers and groove production studios is the placement of the knobs and faders on the device. So in general, if you play finger drumming, you have two basic hand postures. One is like that, and the other one is like that. And when you think about knobs and sliders that would be too high on the surface in that area, you would constantly hit these control elements, which would result in either you hurting yourself or you damaging the device, which both is not really desirable. And the ones that you see here, these pad controllers and groove production studios, they all have a good placement of knobs and sliders, so they never get in the way when you play them. So that's really important. Also, what I like about pad controllers is they give me visual feedback on the pads, either about the velocity I hit them with, or on just the pure fact if I hit them or not, because that gives me a visual reflection on what I play. And if I, for example, don't hear a sound when I hit a pad, I can still see whether the pad is really hit and something in the software is probably wrong. In general, about the difference between pad controllers and groove production studios, I need to say that with pad controllers, it's quite simple, because they don't come with a piece of software that they are built for, or which the hardware is integrated into, which means that you can use them for actually every digital audio workstation or every virtual drum module that you can buy. Whereas with the groove production studios like the Maschine Studio or MPC Element, or also the Ableton Push controller, they are built really specifically for one software that the manufacturer also provides, which also makes them, of course, much more expensive than the regular pad controller, which comes as a standalone device, which sends MIDI data and can be received by every DAW, right? But also what I want to mention is that even with the groove production studios, they usually have a mode in which you can use just purely the MIDI data that the pads send when you hit them, right? Also, pricing is, as I said, a factor that needs to be considered when you make your purchase decision. These regular pad controllers, and with regular pad controllers I mean pad controllers that have a 4x4 pad section. So these regular pad controllers, they start at about 100 euros and go up to about 200, 250 euros. But I think for the devices that I show you, that's quite a fair price for most of them. Yeah. So, as said, prices. The M-Audio trigger finger is not yet available anymore, but back then it costed about 150 euros. There's a successor now, that's the Trigger Finger Pro, and this is different because it also goes in the direction of groove production studios with lots of features, and I think it even contains onboard sounds and so on, but I'm not sure about that. I once bought it when it really was launched to the market, and I was really happy with the pads, but I wasn't happy with the price back then, because when they launched it was quite expensive, more than 300 euros, and for the features that it offered, it was too expensive for me. However, I have a price alert, so when it drops below 200 euros, I'll probably buy it. But I can say the pad section on the legacy device, the trigger finger is really great. I love the pad sensitivity here. And also on the newer Trigger Finger Pro, the pad sensitivity is really good, and a reason why I would buy it again. Then we have the Korg PadKONTROL. I think this is one of the standard pad controllers around, so many people use it. And it costs about 150 to 200 euros, and probably the same area in dollars. And also here you have really sensitive pads. You have quite a good software editor with which you can pre-configure it. That's something also, that was one reason why I sent the Trigger Finger Pro back, because I didn't find a software editor. Maybe they have had one, but I really searched hard for it, but didn't find one. And I usually want to have a software editor if possible. Makes it easier, saves time and so on. Here, this QuNeo from McMillen is also a great pad controller, and this one is probably the most sensitive pad controller that I have. So the pads are really highly sensitive, which I think isn't a bad thing. It really depends on the strength of your hands, as I said, and also maybe the kind of music that you want to play with it. So for example, if you want to play metal on the pad controller, so metal drumming, double bass, blast beats and so on, there's quite a lot of pressure and hits going on the pads, and you don't want to hurt yourself when you do finger drumming. Although it's fun and so on, you must not overdo it. And if you then have a pad controller that has a high velocity sensitivity, it's actually good, because after 2 hours of playing, your fingers won't hurt, which can be the case if you have a pad controller with a lower pad velocity. Or pad sensitivity, sorry. Also, you see knobs and sliders here. They have these sliders here without haptic or tactile elements like knobs and so on, or faders. That's also solved quite nicely, if you ask me. Then the iRigPads. That's a pad controller that comes from AKAI Multimedia. It's quite new on the market. I think they have launched it end of last year or so, 2014. And it's really a good device. So it doesn't cost a lot. So it costs 120 euros, $150. By the way, this one costs about 150 to 200 euros in dollars. But the good thing about this pad controller is it's really straightforward. It's easy to tweak. So you have an editor software that comes with it, but even the onboard editing functions that you have here are really straightforward. Pad sensitivity is good. Probably of all these devices here, it's one of the pad sensitivity that needs the highest hit velocity. So the triggering threshold for hitting it is rather high. So that needs to be considered. If you have really not that strong hands, you should consider maybe buying another one. But overall, really good device. And here we have the AKAI NPD 18. The AKAI NPD 18, as you see, I just have one here. Here I have two of these controllers, and there's a reason for it, which I'm coming to soon. The AKAI NPD 18 costs about 100 euros, but if you're asking me, it has the unfortunately not the best pad section. So There are two reasons for that. First of all, velocity sensitivity is not very good. So you have pads, if you hit them in a row, it's not straight, so it's not equal, right? So I had that a couple of times that I wanted to play some grooves, and I had really big variances in the velocity or in the volume of the sounds that came out of my DAW. That's the reason why I almost never use it. So I also had the MPD 26 or 24 and the MPD 32. The problem was that they had these sliders and knobs all over the place, and I was hitting them all the time, so I had to get rid of them, unfortunately. Don't remember really how the pad sensitivity was with these pad controllers, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter today because I can't use them because of the knobs and sliders, right? Okay, so these are the pad controls, the basic pad controls. I think these are the basic options if you don't want to play finger drumming on a virtual or in a groove production studio like the AKAI MPC, Maschine, or the Ableton Push. But the reason why I have two pad controllers here is that you can play finger drumming with two pad controllers, at least with the XpressPads finger drumming technique. And that's the reason why I have two of them. And then price really matters again, because with 150 euros or 120 or 150 here, 150 and there, the new one, as I said, about 200 something. I think it's okay to buy two and then thereby double the amount of kit pieces you can play finger drumming with, which makes it a bit different if you go over here to the Maschine Studio or to the AKAI NPC Studio Renaissance, which are probably the biggest competitors of the Maschine Mikro and the Maschine Studio, because those start at 300, 350 euros, the smaller ones, and really the flagship group production studios like Maschine Studio and the AKAI MPC Renaissance, respectively, they cost about $1,000. Yeah, so 1,000 euros, 900 euros, 800 euros. I don't know what the store price is right now, but that's quite a lot of money if you just think about finger drumming. So you should have an additional purpose for that device next to finger drumming. If it's only finger drumming, pad controllers is fine, But with these other devices, you really should have a second reason for buying it. Okay, so that said about pad controllers, the regular ones. There are some smaller ones like here, this one from Steinberg, the PD pad controller. Really small, good if you want to do it in the subway or somewhere on the road, but probably I wouldn't use it on a daily basis because the pads are so small, requires you to be much more precise in your playing. But what you can say about this one, it's pad sensitive, so that's really good, because those ones here, the Launchpads, they aren't pad sensitive, meaning you only have on or off information on each and every pad. I think this one costs about 100 euro, 120 euros. As I was just mentioning the Launchpads here, these are the early Launchpads from Ableton and from Novation. So these are also, they're actually used for controlling Ableton Live or FL Studio. They come with a template for FL Studio as well. And these are more control surfaces than they are pad controllers for finger drumming. So that's the reason why I can't really recommend them for finger drumming, because you only have one velocity with which the samples are fired off when you press them. So it's more like buttons that you press than pads that you hit, and that makes a big difference. However, I've seen that Ableton, that Novation, the manufacturer of those hardware devices, has announced to launch the Launchpad Pro, which will cost about 300 euros in dollars, and this one will contain sensitive pads, and that will make this device very interesting finger drumming, because then you can, although the pads are relatively small, you can really, that opens up your imagination of what you can play if you have 64 pads instead of 16, right? So that's, offers a lot of additional sound options that you have later. Okay, so now let's speak about groove production studios, like for example the MPC Element from AKAI. This is the smallest groove production studio version that they offer, and probably the cheapest on the market compared to other groove production studios. It comes with the MPC Element software. I gave it a try. I just looked into it, tried the Getting Started guide, but I have to be honest, I didn't really check it in depth. However, I know that a lot of people swear on it, so not maybe the AKAI MPC Element, but the AKAI MPC Studio and the AKAI MPC Renaissance. And for example, David Haynes plays finger drumming on the MPC Studio, and well, he's really a great finger drummer. He probably doesn't play equipment that he doesn't like, so if you want to go for a groove production studio, it's probably worth giving it a try. Go to the store and test it there. I once bought a B-stock version of it, and of the MPC Studio, and this one didn't work for me, probably because we had some errors in it, but it was just, so it was a broken device, so I can't really comment on that one. But as said, there's a huge followership, people that use it, so maybe you want to give it a try. So the counterpart on the Native Instruments side is the Maschine Mikro. This one has also a great pad section, and again, the Maschine Studio and the Maschine Mikro both have great pad sections, very sensitive, tweakable, so via software you can change the pad sensitivity, and for finger drumming, really I can recommend that. And with the additional features on these groove production studios, it really is some new endeavor for me, because so far, probably until 2 months ago, I always used pad controllers. Now I'm more getting into the groove production area, which is great for loop-based music, and here I really start appreciating the tactile feedback that you have, or the tweakability of the software via the hardware. And so far I can say I really appreciate that. Finally, you have these small pad controllers over there. You can see they only have here 4x2 or 6x2 pads. They're also sensitive, and the sensitivity is really good, especially on the LPD8. And you can either use them just as they are to play some very basic grooves with some kit pieces, but you can also put them together as two and then play it as a 4x4 pad controller, because that's interesting maybe for these two. The XpressPads finger drumming technique splits your pad section actually in half, so it's like a mirror in the middle. We have bass drums here, snare drums there, and so on. So especially with these controllers, that make them very interesting. What I can't recommend is this one here. It's the Icon, iStage or whatever. I had really a hard time getting the software installer running. You see now the pads are turning yellow, which I really don't like, and also the pad sensitivity isn't great. So it's really cheap. I don't know what I paid for it, but it was, I think, below 100 euros. But it's, if you're asking me, it's should invest a little bit more and get something serious. Lastly, I'd like to mention I'm not endorsed by any of these companies here, which products lie on the table. So no one pays me, no one gives me free products or supports me in any way. There's only one exception, that's with AKAI Multimedia. After I've done a review, They contacted me and gave me a bit of free software and one pad controller, but that's all. And my positive impression on the iRigPads I won before. They just gave me a little reward for that. Okay, I think that's all I can say about pad controllers in this basic overview. Over time, I will probably produce different reviews for the different pieces of hardware here, also the way you can manipulate them, the way you can change pad assignments and so on. And also what I would like to mention is if you're really interested in finger drumming, please visit the website XpressPads.com. There you will also find the XpressPads layouts for different pad controllers, such as the Korg PadKONTROL, iRigPads, the QuNeo. I think for the MPD I have them there as well, definitely for the Maschine, and maybe also for the MPC elements. Then you can start finger drumming right away. If you have questions, just leave them in the comments area in YouTube. If you like the video, please give it a like, and if you want to subscribe, know more about finger drumming, also software reviews and so on, then please subscribe. And maybe one thing I'd like to mention, which is coming up, that's an e-course about intuitive composing on pads, and it will be based on the Launchpad. So if you're interested on that one too, stay tuned with a subscription, and we'll see you again.